welcome to the August 28th, 2018 episode of Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth podcast about what happened this week in our lives. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And OldManStompy.
Hey!
It's your favorite OldManStompy.
We finally got you back on again.
What was like 2 weeks?
Yeah, finally.
And an all-time high.
Yeah.
You're one more year into decomposition, I realize.
Yes, last weekend was my birthday. Thank you for remembering. It's one less year that you'll
It was Pyro's birthday, too.
Not that close. I mean, yes, his birthday came first. His birthday is 17 days before mine.
Close enough.
So, you know, he was having a birthday when it was cool.
I ate my pizza before it was cool. I burnt my mouth.
Careful about that joke. It's an antique.
So anyway, we had some crazy corrective consciousness related announcements in the video game world this week. Some really crazy stuff. But first, I did want to say a quick word about the tragedy that happened over the weekend. Are you guys aware of what happened?
Are we talking about the Jacksonville situation?
Yeah. I do want to express my greatest sympathies to everybody involved with that. The video game places should be someplace that's safe for everybody. I'm not going to make this a big political thing, because I know there are very opinions out there, but I think that something needs to be done. But this is not the way, guys. If you're feeling bad or somebody who's feeling bad, that's triggered by what should be a minor disappointment. I think he just lost a match.
Yeah, that's what I heard. It was like severe overreaction to losing in a tournament or something like that.
Definitely help seek your friends out. And try to get them the help they need. I think there's a mental health issue component there. I certainly have had my issues with mental health, but just an outright tragedy. So I'm going to leave it at that on my end, but I think it's something that absolutely needs to stop. I don't know if anybody else wants to say a word, but...
Yeah, I mean, real quick. I mean, no doubt this person was unstable, but I'm not gonna... I'm not gonna focus specifically on mental health. Like, I get really angry when I lose over and over again, but I'm not about to go find somebody and kill them, Like, that's something else entirely.
Well, it's usually your own fault if you're angry. So
that's true too. But I mean, like, it's true. I don't play much multiplayer. But like, again, like, this isn't just like, oh man, I guess he's got some mental problem. Like, I'm thinking some sort of sense of entitlement or something like that. Because like, how do you get to that point where it's like, you know what? You don't have to find anyone. This wasn't an online match. But like, how do you get to that point where you leave the area and then come back with a gun?
Well, not only that, but the stakes were low here. You know what I mean? It's not like... It's not like...
Yeah, they're the grand finals of the Olympics or whatever.
It's not even that. Like, even that's low stakes. I mean, yeah, the glory or whatever, but, like, I mean, is that really going to change your life forever?
Yeah, Madden 2018, yeah.
Exactly. That's my point. It's a real shame that this happened. And... I have a bunch of opinions on how we could help fix it, but I'm not attempting to segment our community. But I do think that it's a huge problem and a huge tragedy. That's all. And I wanted to acknowledge it because it's something that shouldn't have happened. And also there were some people that popped up with the video game violence people popped up, and it's just like they were playing.
It was
football.
fucking Madden. Yeah, they were playing what people always watch in real life. Like, get out of here. If Madden's a problem, then I guess football is a problem, and I don't think anyone's gonna argue that.
This is part of the overall same issue that's going on at schools in Las Vegas and things like that. So
yeah.
It's a problem, and I hope eventually we come up with something that works in helping curb these kinds of things. OldManStompy, did you have anything to say?
I don't even know where to start. There's nothing that I can say that could be encapsulated in the couple of minutes that we'd want to devote to this topic. When I thought about this when, I talked about Gen Con and we went to the beta draft, and that was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and there were people there who were just desperate to be a part of it, and they threw away their entire weekend and hundreds of dollars. This was their shot at glory, and, this kind of thing points to the fact that it's not everything in the world. Sometimes we treat, like winning and we treat, success like as a measurement of your worth as a person, and we take it as a personal attack when we lose. And that can't be the end all to everything, and it's unfortunate that this happens. I mean, people experience disappointment all the time, and they don't go out and shoot the guy who caused it. And
exactly.
So I don't want to make excuses for the guy. I don't want to make excuses for his friends. The same thing happens every time there's a school shooting. Like, it places the burden, for stopping these things on his friends, and they don't deserve that.
That is true. Yeah, like that is true. It's like if like I remember for the whole school thing, it's like if you see someone who's exhibiting these tendencies, like try being nice to them. It's like, okay, but they could also get their own fucking act together. Like it shouldn't be the victim's job to like stop the shooter. It should be. Yeah.
This shouldn't be the response to anything. Like this is not a healthy response to anything.
Yeah, like being nice to somebody is a good idea, but like, don't put that on everyone in the school who is not the shooter. Like, it's the shooter's problem.
Yeah, also, getting bullied and getting made fun of is a way of life. And I know it's not something that everybody, that you want to have to deal with, but it is a part of life. And some people experience it more than others. And it sucks to have to say this, but you kind of just have to deal with it until the world gets over whatever you're getting bullied over. And I know that sucks because you're the one being bullied, maybe. But this happens to everybody, believe it or not. Very few people get away without getting bullied. I was not one of them. I was not one of them.
when we talk about like modern progressivism and modern feminism, like it's easy to say, we don't care about what happens to men, and that's oftentimes a stance that men take to dismiss it, but what it also means is when we talk about the concept of toxic masculinity, it's about the impact that punishes other men and, is poisonous to other men, where we say, there's only one avenue to becoming a real man, and that's in dominance and anger and repression of your emotions until you have no outlet for them other than violence. And that's not fair to the men either, and
actually I've read on several various like social media and forums and stuff like that the reason like male suicide is disproportionately high compared to women's is that they really don't have an outlet for their emotions. Like, women have like all sorts of support groups and everything, and it's like, you can come in and like express your feelings, and men like don't, like, it's not actively discouraged, but it's like low-key discouraged, so they kind of can't.
Here's the thing. Men, like, as friends, do not express their feelings to each other. Even their best of friends.
Yeah, not often.
Maybe your best of friend will help you out when you really, really need it.
That's the thing. Like, it's like a big deal. It's like, I just had the worst divorce you've ever seen, and I lost my house. I need fucking help. Like, that's a situation, exactly. But usually they don't.
and it's usually reserved for the most harsh of situations.
Yeah.
And otherwise, even in the most liberal of social groups, even in the most understanding of social groups, you still don't look the best sometimes, and it's a shame that it's like that. But women at least have their friends to bounce their daily frustrations off of. I mean, geez, most guys don't have that outlet or can even express it in their relationships, because they have to perform a certain role, and it's a shame. It's a real shame that they can't just. They have to be strong, I guess, is their perception.
Yeah,
that's the
thing.
They can't
like,
complain about something.
Because that's the whole thing. Like, they can, but, like, there's going to be that barrier you have to cross of, like, are you sure we should be having this conversation? Like, you got to, like, make it apparent that, yes, it's a necessary thing.
Yeah.
So, there's a somewhat famous social experiment that was done quite some time ago that suggests that, for example, in addiction, like, the leading cause is simply loneliness and, like, lack of positive social stimuli.
Huh.
Same for men's health. That one of the leading causes of death of men is loneliness, and the accompanying behavioral patterns that come along with not having, again, positive social stimuli. And that sucks.
It's a shame, because people can't be open and honest with their frustrations, and do simple things like crying. Crying is like a big thing. Men traditionally can't cry. In friend groups, they can't do it. They could do it at a funeral, but it's rare. In other circumstances, a lot of times they can't even do it in private with somebody they love. They can, but, like, again, it's not. The other person might see them differently as a result, and that stinks. Mm-hmm. And they should be able to have an outlet for a big, frustrating, terrible day. But I don't want to get too in the weeds with this. I do think that is a big part of the problem. But I don't think it's the only thing. There is toxic masculinity all around the world, and these mass shootings don't happen like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Toxic masculinity has existed everywhere for a very long time, and it's not something that is unique to us. So I do think the school shooting and public shooting thing needs to stop. It's something that is grossly disproportionate in the United States, and I don't know what exactly needs to be done. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or even a mental health expert outside of my own experience. However, I do think something needs to be done. At least trying something would help. In my book, in my thoughts.
Well, from what it sounds like, at least, I mean, this doesn't apply to most of the cases, but to this case, like, not pushing the gotta win attitude would be nice. Like, winning is good, but it is not a requirement.
Well,
we can't all be number one,
Well, maybe we need less examples that, people that are this hurt can see can copycat off of in order to resolve their situation. That might be part of it too. It might be a socially acceptable thing because it happens so much, even though it shouldn't be in any respect. But anyway, I did want to just say that because it is a terrible thing, and I have to address it, or else I'm ignoring it. So I don't want to do that either. I don't want to ignore a big tragedy that happened within our sphere. But having said that, there are a lot of fantastic announcements that happened in this week alone within the video game sphere that I absolutely needed to talk about.
And several of them were like genuine surprises too. It's not it's not even like finally this is happening. Like I can see at least two of the statements on your notes that just came completely out of nowhere.
So two things in particular were completely out of the blue and completely not hinted anywhere.
Yeah.
Until they happened. One of them just happened today. We're recording on Monday, so you're hearing this the next day. But the first one was Windjammers 2 was announced earlier this week.
Yeah,
for PS4
what
and
the
Switch.
hell? Like this must have followed the popularity of like when it got released on PS4 and Vita and stuff like that. So people must have been like, oh, Windjammer. So like a sequel. Like what is this? Like 15, 20 years later? Maybe not 20.
No, it's 20 years. I mean,
Wow.
Early 90s. It's more than 20 years. It's like 25.
That's insane.
So I mean, it's a Neo Geo game. So
Yeah.
you're probably talking 93 or 94 for Windjammers 1.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Which is hilarious that I'm calling it Windjammers 1 for the first time.
I know.
But also take a huge drink of whatever
I know. Yeah, Windjammers nod, people. Get ready. Buckle up.
But I mean, in wake of that, it's kind of funny because .emu finally announced that they are making a port of the original to the Switch. So what's great about this is that you'll have both options. You'll have Windjammers 1 and 2 on the Switch and on the PS4. So from what I saw of it, it was just a teaser trailer. There are supposed screens of it not in motion, so and looking at them, they more than likely are concept art. Really good looking concept art. It doesn't look like gameplay to me. However, I think they're going to do it right. .emu with their last few games has done a really good job. They're traditionally an emulation house that used to port a lot of kind of substandard ports of Neo Geo games to PC, and now Hamster's doing that for the most part. But they have really kind of knocked it out of the park with their last few titles, including the Wonder Boy remake, which was fantastic. That was one of their titles. They helped port some of the ports of that. So I'm really looking forward to it. The art style is different. They captured the colors and style of Windjammers, which is fantastic, absolutely great. But it is not pixelated anymore. So that might take some people getting used to, but I think it's going to be a faster game and also have a lot more to do in it, which will be really cool. You know, it might have a really nice campaign mode because it's not an arcade game anymore.
That's a good point.
It'll probably have a lot more characters that have a lot more varied things to do. I should also mention that I still love Crazy Power Disc, which is the Dojin game that was kind of made as an unofficial sequel. The two versions of that, with the perfect version as well, is still really, really good. So if you are a Windjammers fan and need your fix before Windjammers 2 comes out, those games are great. They're anime-styled and pixel.
And their soundtracks are freaking insane.
Both those games are excellent. They are worth tracking down if you can find a copy of them. Going along with that, .emu announced another thing with just a teaser trailer just today. And that was Streets of Rage 4, which is a fucking mind-blowing event.
That really came out of nowhere. What's interesting is character redesigns. There were a couple of things, by the way, speaking of characters, one thing I thought was kind of funny, it continues the actual fan rage, but in a way, it's kind of funny. Nothing's been confirmed yet, but we've seen Axel and Blaze, and there's no word on Adam.
Yeah, so...
And it's like, come on.
Well, what I think they're doing here is pretty smart. So the Axel and Blaze are the only two constant characters that have been in all three previous games, if you remember right. Every other character has only been in either 2 or 1.
Yeah, Adam was in the first one, and then Skate and Max were in 2, and then Skate again and Zan, excluding secret characters, were in 3. Secret characters were like mini bosses though, so no Adam.
Yeah, you have Rue
and Shiva
and Shiva and Ash.
Ash in the Japanese version, yes.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to it. It looks like they're going for a grizzly version of Axel, which is pretty cool.
He's got a beard, he's got like some sort of shirt or sweater tied around his waist, and he's definitely bulkier than he used to be.
Yeah, he looks like, kind of like the Terry Bogard in Mark of Wolves, which is great. Kind of like a slightly older version.
Yeah.
And Blaze got some upgrades on the front of her. But they just did a redesign there, for Cheesecake Appeal. But I'm really looking forward to it. There have been so many false starts in the Streets of Rage franchise in order to get a fourth game.
Yeah, Fighting Force.
Fighting Force was namely the biggest one, but there have been other projects that have been worked on that there was apparently a Dreamcast game in the works at some point too. So I'm glad that we're past the point where we need to force a 3D game on people.
Like Final Fight Streetwise.
Yeah, this is going to be a traditional 2D beat 'em up. We don't know if there's going to be combo systems. I'm sure there will be, or leveling up systems. I'm sure there will be. Similar. I hope it's similar to Double Dragon Neon.
Actually, speaking of which, the graphics really reminded me of that because they're not going traditional Streets of Rage, Sega Genesis pixel graphics or sprite or whatever. This is way smoother, but it did remind me of Billy and Jimmy from Neon with how smooth both the motion was, but also just the drawing.
Yeah, so apparently the art is done by the guy who did the art for the Wonder Boy remake, which is excellent.
That makes sense. I can see that, especially on the box art.
Yeah, so it's very fluid. It looks good so far, but I'm reserving judgment. The major piece that everybody's wondering about is whether Yuzo Koshiro's involved.
Because he kind of is the series.
Yuzo Koshiro is the heart and soul of Streets of Rage. He is his music plus the gameplay of the second one are pretty much the reason why I love the series so much.
That's the thing. Streets of Rage 1 is a competent beat 'em up, but it does not stand out among its contemporaries.
Streets of Rage music.
Yeah, its music is
fucking great.
Its music just hits you. And now Streets of Rage 2 is one of the best beat 'em ups of its time, but again, level 1, Go Straight, that music just hits you immediately and it sticks with you forever.
It's one of my top 3 favorite games of all time probably, and it is just it is the best beat 'em up I've ever played. I love it. You can't get any better than it.
I was having a debate with Mr. Ryu on this because I grew up with a Genesis, but he grew up with Final Fight, and we were arguing which is better. I will concede that Final Fight is the better series, but Streets of Rage 2 is the best individual game I think of them all.
I think Streets of Rage 2 is one of the best games ever made, period.
2 is ridiculous. It is legendary.
3, if you play the Japanese version, is close.
3 is really damn good. Yeah, American Streets of Rage 3 is not.
No,
but
don't bother.
Japanese version is really good. Branching paths. Music that works. It's not what you're used to from Streets of Rage 1 and 2, but it does work. Multiple, I said branching paths, but multiple endings. New Game Plus, because you can get those secret characters you unlock. Kind of New Game Plus. It's insane. There's so much going on with it.
So here's something I found out by watching a documentary. Yuzo Koshiro's company, Ancient, actually made 2 and 3. They literally developed it. Yuzo Koshiro actually made 2 and 3. Along with his family and other people that worked at his small company.
Nice.
So not only did he do the music and sound design, he also designed the game. Here's the cool thing though. I and a whole bunch of other people messaged Yuzo Koshiro or tagged him on some Twitter messages, and he said basically came down to the fact is I know everybody's expecting a lot out of me. I cannot say anything, so please hold on. So I don't know whether that's a silent confirmation. It certainly sounds like it is. Because if he's not involved at all or was mad about something or whatever, he would just say no.
Yeah, we've seen celebrities do this before too. Sorry guys, I'm not involved in the project. I remember the original voice actor for Claire Redfield from Resident Evil 2. I think, had like a YouTube video where she was like, "Yeah, I know, guys, but sorry, I'm not in the remake." So like, Yuzo Koshiro could have done that. So like, he might be involved. Like, what would keep him from talking, except for some kind of contractual obligation?
Well, there might have been a contract that fell through. Who knows?
Okay.
But
okay.
The music that was advertised with the teaser trailer was definitely not his style, so I don't think it was him.
It was again Double Dragon Neon style. It was like wailing guitars and like radical 80s.
Which makes me believe that if he's involved, he is probably contributing to the soundtrack, and he's not the only person in it.
So to give a bit of an example, he's contributing to the soundtrack for the next Monster Boy game, but he is not the primary composer.
Okay.
Yes. And he's done that several times. Castlevania.
Was it like on the PSP or something?
Portrait of Ruin.
Okay.
Actually, the second one for DS. With the one with Jonathan and Charlotte, he actually contributed to that soundtrack.
Okay.
He wasn't the lead composer.
Yeah.
So it makes me think that he's involved in some which way. It's just a matter of how deep in. But I am super excited. I'm absolutely going to give it a shot. It's apparently done by the Streets of Fury people. Have you ever seen Streets of Fury?
I have seen it now that I was reading up about the game a little bit before about Streets of Rage 4 a little bit before the podcast, just so I wasn't completely out of the loop, and that game looks absurd. It's hilarious.
Apparently, it not only does it look absurd, it plays fantastic.
Yeah,
apparently it's a really good game.
That's how I was introduced to it. Like, just looking at the screenshots or the trailer, it looks like a very
digitizations.
It looks like a very bad Fighter Dojo level, but apparently it's actually way more fun than you'd think.
Yeah, apparently the controls are fantastic. It plays really well, and I'm gonna get it. I mean, the animation on the digitization looks fantastic. I mean, it's still goofy as shit because it is digitized, but it looks like a lot of fun.
Not only is it digitized, but it's also just like a guy in shorts and a shirt, you know?
Yeah, I love stuff like that.
It's made to look B tier. It's made to look B tier. Now, what's really interesting is they put this game on sale yesterday, right before they made this announcement.
Oh, that's clever.
They definitely knew that people interest in the game was going to go up, which is pretty neat.
Well, they reduced the price, you mean? They didn't actually put it on sale.
No, they put it on sale. It's it went down to like $4.99 or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They reduced the price. It's been out for years.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, what Vice is saying is they put it on sale, not for sale.
Right. Okay. Just being clear here.
Yeah.
They put a temporary sale price on it.
Yes.
Okay?
Wow, this guy has one of the characters has a taunt where he tips his fedora.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, it was, I believe, an Xbox Live arcade indie title way back in the day too.
Yes, and the one on Steam that went on sale is like a HD remake for what it's worth.
Yeah, so a better version of that. So,
but what does HD even mean? How can you get better graphics than real life? It's like an HD remake of Street Fighter the movie, the game. Impossible.
They actually had a budget this time around than a $1 indie game.
Yeah.
A couple little things here, but I did want to announce them because, like, out of the fucking blue. Grandia 1 and 2 collection for the Switch. I never thought I would see Grandia 1 ever republished.
What was that on? PS1?
PS1, yeah. In fact, it was a first-party published title.
Oh.
It wasn't first-party developed. It was developed by Game Arts. But the translation, I think, it was all Sony. So this means they're probably retranslating it, which is a good thing. It'll give it a more modern flair. And, I mean, Grandia 2 is one of the best RPGs of that era, so it's really good that they're both there. I actually heard that Grandia 3 is quite good as well, but I haven't played any of them.
Yeah, I've never touched them.
Very mixed opinions about the series after 2. I have Grandia Extreme, which is not so great.
It's a remake of 1, like a weird remake or something, right?
Grandia Extreme has nothing to do with 1. It's just kind of a dungeon, like a Shining in the Darkness kind of game where there are only a handful of dungeons. and you grind them over and over again until you can clear the game.
Oh, like Evolution or something like that?
Yeah, it was kind of notorious because they paid a lot of money to get, I think it was Dean Cain and Lisa Loeb and somebody else, I can't remember, to do the voice acting. They actually hired like A-list Hollywood talent at the time. Wow. Dean Cain was was Superman on the TV show, so this was at its peak popularity.
Wow.
So, but the rest of the game was pretty unremarkable, and I remember it being really difficult. But I've watched like requiring like 70 to 80 hours of dungeon grinding. But I've also watched like YouTube videos where they destroy the final boss. I guess people just didn't know how to play video games in the mid 2000s. I know this because I think I made a point about this. I was reading like old game FAQs recently.
Yeah.
And some of them from the early 2000s are just awful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's evolved, and plus people have found out about things like synergies and how like certain combinations of things can break.
Oh yeah, especially thanks to like the speedrunning community. A lot of games have been just dissected back and back in ways that we never expected to be.
It is pretty great.
These games have been analyzed to their very code.
I've even seen speedrun guides. Like when I was going through Resident Evil 1 100 times to do my like comparison video, I did want to beat the game as quickly as I could for the sake of seeing like the ending scenes and things like that. And there were insane guides like beat the game with Chris in like an hour and 25. I'm like, holy shit. And the thing was, when I followed the guide, I actually came like, I wasn't that fast, but like I think I was under like 2 hours or something, which is way better than what I would have been used to be doing. Like, I never even picked up the shotgun. It was like, use the pistol until Plant 42, and then, like, run away from everything, or use the Magnum. And it actually worked.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And a couple other little things. I'm just going to mention these. A couple weeks ago, I did mention how excited I was for the Sega Ages line of games to hit Switch. They have been delayed until September. However,
I mean, September's right around the corner anyway.
In Japan, I don't think we've actually gotten the official U.S. release dates yet. But the big thing is they announced what the features for Phantasy Star, and they're mind-blowing. They make the game so much better.
Okay.
So they have these are all optional upgrades, by the way. So if you want to play it the way it was originally made, you can go ahead and do so. So you're not forced to use these quality of life improvements, but goddamn, you should. The first thing is that in the original Phantasy Star, one of probably the biggest thing that hasn't aged is that the dungeons are first-person like wizardry-like levels.
Yeah, very old school. Like this is how gameplay was in the 90s kind of dungeons.
Now, the part that hasn't aged well is not the dungeons themselves. They look neat, but the gameplay. There is no map. So it's very easy to get lost unless you take out the graph paper. And everything looks the same. There are no landmarks. So it's very difficult to get through a lot of...
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
It's very hard to get through a lot of these dungeons without any point of reference.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very King's Quest V.
Yeah.
It was awful.
So there's no way that you're memorizing the layout of the later dungeons that even have traps in them and holes in the floor and stuff that you could fall through and land in a different level. It has an auto map feature.
That's great.
As you go through it, as you explore, kind of like an Etrian Odyssey, and a map will be filled in over to the side.
That's very good.
It will display at the same time. There's also a bestiary.
I love those.
So it'll have descriptions of the enemies that you have already fought, and also the kinds of things they drop, and what they're weak to, just like any other modern bestiary.
And this is Phantasy Star 1, right?
Yes.
Because, from what I'm aware of, it just hasn't...
The Master System 1.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, from what I'm aware of, it hasn't really been ported outside of, like, Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection. That was apparently, like, a big deal.
Well, it was on the Game Boy Advance. There was a Phantasy Star trilogy.
Oh,
That's
wow.
correct.
Okay, I never even knew about that.
but it's a bad version. It has very bad problems with corrupting save files.
Okay.
And this is not a game that you want to lose your progress in because it's a little grindy.
Yeah.
It's not as grindy as the original Dragon Quest, but you don't want to lose progress in the RPGs.
It's Dragon Quest 2-ish, not Dragon Quest 1.
So the other features that it will have will be for Japan they were adding a hiragana option rather than kanji, which we won't care about, but I'm sure is very good for people that don't know kanji as well.
Yeah.
And also the option to pick either versions of the soundtrack. So
nice.
when the Japanese version came out in Japan, the Master System equivalent in Japan called the Mark III had an FM sound unit add-on where it could play enhanced soundtracks. Now, the majority of it was never released in the US, so we could never really experience those versions of the soundtracks. The vast majority of Sega Master System games actually have two versions of the soundtrack as a result. You'll be able to choose which one you like. Personally, even though I'm a big FM sound junkie, like I love the Genesis, which is, the FM sound on that is what makes it so great. The Sega Master System versions of all of those on the vast majority of the games I do not like as much as their native sound equivalent.
But
the option is there.
Here's a question, because I know that you have told me before about someone had made like a fan-made power-based converter for the Master System that incorporates the FM sound. Here's a question. Yeah. Regarding the Japanese FM compatibility, is that all in the Master System, or is it in the games, like Famicom games have those extra chips in them, so like even if you imported the Japanese games, it wouldn't make a difference on our American Nintendo systems?
Good question. So every cartridge has both versions of the game on it. It's whether you can actually play the you need to have the accessory to play it.
So now, even the American games have it, we just can't hear it.
Hold on.
All right.
The exception being every once in a while when they ported the game over to the United States, they would remove it because they knew we had no use for it. But the majority of the games that did have an alternate soundtrack did have them on their cartridges in the US. So if you happen to get a converter and play the US game on a Mark III with an FM sound unit, most likely you would have the option. Now, what's really funny is there were a couple games that had FM sound versions of their songs that were not released in Japan on the cartridges.
That's so weird.
So nobody had access to it.
Yeah, nobody could hear it. It was like a hidden secret for until somebody discovered this, I guess.
I guess the thought was the original intention was that they were going to release it in all territories, and it just didn't happen.
Well, I'm just wondering if some Japanese super nerd was like, let me import the American version for that sound, and he discovered it. It was like, oh shit, it sounds different.
Yeah, I think it was one of the Wonder Boy games in particular.
Okay.
But Phantasy Star was actually one of the few games where they did take it out for the American version. So if you wanted to go to and use it on an emulator, you would actually need to find a fan-translated version of the Japanese version of the game in order to experience it.
That's so irritating. Again, this brings me right back to my complaining about Siren 2. I could import the Japanese disc and play it on my PS2, but I don't know Japanese. And there will never be a fan translation for it because the game was already officially translated in Europe on a dual-layer disc that I can't play on my PS2.
Yeah, the best you can hope for is that somebody makes a conversion someday, or we come up with a homebrew solution. But I did want to mention these things because they're coming out with a Sonic the Hedgehog with Spin Dash, and also the Drop Dash from Mania, which is I didn't even think they were going to do that.
Nice. But wait, do they have the weird dash that's not a spin from the Sega CD version?
Oh, you mean that figure 8? That he makes?
Yeah, what was that for? Busting through walls or something and nothing else? I don't remember why you did that.
That was just the version of the spin dash for that game. I think.
No, I'm pretty sure he also had a spin dash. Like, there was hold down and dash and hold up and dash, and it threw me off, and I don't remember why that was a thing.
I don't know. And there's also
Whatever.
I don't know. There's also Thunder Force 4, which will probably have like sound options, I bet, and some other trainers. So very, very much looking forward to that. The only other one thing, couple things. I'm sorry. Bloodstained, the main game was delayed until 2019. I am okay with it. The reason why they delayed it is they are taking the feedback from the beta players, and they are making the changes that they suggested.
Like, that's
no
the thing.
problem with that ever.
A lot of, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people usually complain about delays, and I get it. I want to play the game now, but like, delays aren't for fun. Like, would you rather have a broken game now or like a proper game later? Like, I'd rather play the game later than get mad at it now. You know?
Yeah. No, I'd much rather have a complete game. It's kind of like when Zelda Twilight Princess was delayed. That was probably the one that hit the hardest.
That actually made me furious because I think part of that was because they wanted to push the Wii version first. I had pre-ordered the GameCube version, so it got delayed and delayed and delayed, and then finally it launches, but not for my system. Wait yet another month or whatever it was. I was so mad. I was happy when the game finally came out, worked as intended, except for that crippling game-breaking save glitch, which I fortunately never found. But boy, was I mad up until that point.
And so I'm okay with that. They did a fantastic job with the precursor game. That game is a fully fledged like Castlevania game. That game is great.
What was that game called? But it basically is Castlevania, like Castlevania 3.
It is not a demake in the slightest, or even just like a bonus game. It's a full-fledged, like, designed like an old school game.
Curse of the Moon.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, that just is like a present day like Castlevania 3. It's like Shovel Knight. It's the Nintendo game that you couldn't get back then but have now.
So I'm happy playing that until that comes out. The final thing was Devil May Cry 5 was announced as well.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have much to say about this because I'm kind of behind on Devil May Cry stuff, but I am always happy to see another Devil May Cry game because it's a great series. So, it also looks like they're returning to the original series rather than going the reboot route, which should make some people happy.
Well, yeah, this was especially an issue because the way Devil May Cry 4 ended, I wouldn't exactly call it a cliffhanger, but there were heavy nods toward Dante, Mary, and Trish, and you're like, oh, what? And then the reboot came out, and we're like, oh, I guess we're not doing that. So the actual sequel to 4 is coming out, like, over a decade later. So it's kind of like, oh, damn, like, they're going through with it.
As I recall, this was announced back at E3, right? It's not a super new announcement.
This is the first time I heard of it.
I had maybe it was, but if it was, then I missed it.
Yeah, there was a trailer quite some time ago. It was kind of famous because, I mean, it had achieved viral status because Dante has like a hillbilly beard and he's a little bit rough looking. But I think like the release date was announced and like the position in the timeline was announced.
Okay.
So there was a wave of that, and there was a gameplay trailer at Gamescom, so it's back in the news again.
I guess I shouldn't be too surprised because there was that Monster Hunter like Dante must dine like joke thing going on with like the Devil May Cry crossover, so I guess they're teasing it a little early.
Well, I mean, some of that is that Rathalos from Monster Hunter is the new featuring Dante from Devil May Cry. He's just in everything, and he just wants to.
Yeah, that's so weird. He's in fucking Smash. Like what? All right.
He was in whatchamacallit? He was in Metal Gear as well, right?
That was a long time ago. Yeah,
that's Peace Walker. Yeah, we could kill him with a rocket launcher. And there was also that, I forgot what it was called, but like the tiger monster. OldManStompy, you would know what it's called, right? You love Monster Hunter.
Tigrex, right?
Yeah, what Monster Hunter nerd we have over here?
Completely unironically.
Yeah, I actually can't believe you knew what it was called. That really surprised me.
Does that surprise you?
It killed my joke.
OldManStompy is the kind of person that needs to completely study something to truly hate it.
Yeah.
So like he doesn't just like hate things on the surface. Like he
He knows what he hates.
He knows what he hates and exactly why.
So true story. I actually purchased Monster Hunter World and I named my character Dobutsu
I
no
bought it
Mori,
too.
which is the Japanese name for Animal Crossing. And I joined I totally quietly joined Mr. Ryu's hunting team and waited for him to notice that I had named my character after Animal Crossing. It took him like 20 minutes.
Nice. That's a riot.
I'm gonna have to join you guys because I bought it as well and I haven't had a chance to play it. I've been Dark Soulsing.
Sure,
So-
I'm way behind. I'm only about 14 hours in, which sounds like a lot, but it's way behind the amount.
For
of time
Monster Hunter, that is yeah.
That's nothing.
For Monster
Literally
Hunter,
nothing.
you will put in hundreds of hours if you really want to go all in. But here's my question: when is Monster Hunter World going to get Gear Rex?
Oh wow, yeah.
That was the funniest thing. Like,
So-
It had a laser head, right?
yep, yeah.
Like,
Peace Walker had like not a Metal Gear Rex; it had a natural Gear Rex, and it was like, oh shit! It was like this
So
new
what it
Monster
does have is Behemoth from Final Fantasy 14.
Oh,
and
yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, I heard about
that fight is like horrifying.
That's great.
It's like one of the hardest fights in the entire game.
Nice.
Well, I think all of these things have made me super hyped. This has been a really good year for gaming. There's just been so many good things coming out. Not too many disappointments. I haven't been really disappointed by something quite yet.
By the way,
year.
speaking of cool things coming out, like we already know that the Shenmue HD collection came out like last week. But in addition to that, by the time you hear this podcast, Yakuza Kiwami 2 will have finally hit the States. And
Yeah.
I've mentioned this before. I think I've mentioned this on the air, but I don't know how Kiwami 2 is, but like Yakuza 2 was my favorite Yakuza game to play until I think like 4 came along, but it's still probably one of my favorite stories and like antagonists. That the antagonist for 2 is so fun.
A lot of fans cite the second game as their favorite game in the series.
Yeah, like
so.
when Kurt Collada put out his Hardcore Gaming 101 book that covered the top 100 games ever, and he gave 100 honorable mentions, so it was basically 200, like top 200 games.
Yeah.
I remember being flabbergasted when I saw that Yakuza 2 was an honorable mention. I was like, what is better? And then he had Yakuza 4, and I hadn't played it yet, and I was like, yo, okay. But like now we're getting HD 2, so I cannot wait to deal with Goda Ryuji.
So what is the controversy about this game? Like, apparently some people are saying there's stuff left out.
That's what I've heard.
What's going on?
I don't know what's left out, but I heard it is not a 100% Yakuza 2 experience. So I do hope that the modern amenities like kind of make up for that loss, but I don't know exactly what I'm missing.
That's a shame. Maybe they rushed it or something.
Yeah, I mean, well, that was the big thing with 6, is that they had some deadline to meet, so literally the top like third of the Kamurocho map is just inaccessible. They just blocked it off with like under construction signs, and it was like, man, to be like it was just like the gambling areas that were missing, and like the Kamurocho Hills area, which either you go there for plot reasons or not at all, but still, it just felt like empty.
Yeah. Well, I do want to give OldManStompy a platform here to talk about his wrestling experiences, because he has expressed wanting to talk about it. So please go ahead and tell the audience about what you've experienced recently.
Oh, yeah, so I just wanted to come on and talk a bit because this a couple of weekends ago was SummerSlam, which is one of the linchpin weekends for WWE. On an average large pay-per-view weekend, there's the WWF show, which is usually like 5 or 6 hours and is just like unbelievably... It's long. It's hard to sit through that much wrestling. Like the crowd is just exhausted by the end of it. But on the Saturday before that, there's usually an NXT show. NXT is the WWF developmental brand, and it's not as like over processed and is not as like restricted by like their sponsorship deals and things like that. So it's a bit more of a pure wrestling experience, and it's usually a lot more fun to watch. So
it kind of has that indie wrestling feel, right?
Yeah, it's like an indie show, but with WWE production values. That's part of why it's so enjoyable. And it has what I would say for a while has been like one of the hottest feuds in North American wrestling, which I think I talked about during the WrestleMania Response podcast, which is Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa. And like,
are they better than Roman Reigns?
They are more enjoyable than Roman Reigns. So I have a note about Roman Reigns a little bit, and it sort of highlights how the WWF, when they really want to, can be masterful at manipulating the crowd into cheering who they want to cheer. But first, like, the only thing you really need to know about Ciampa, who currently is the champion of NXT, and these guys have been feuding. They've had a storyline that goes back for almost 2 years at this point. They fought. They knew each other in the Indies, so that played into like their very first match in NXT when they fought each other as part of like the first round of a tournament. They formed a tag team, and as basically always happens, one of them turned on the other, and then they had a series of really fun matches that were not for the title, and then Ciampa sort of backed into the title. He was in a title match, and Gargano couldn't stand it, and so he came and tried to attack him, and missed, and wound up attacking the current champion, looking like an idiot, and Ciampa took advantage of his stupidity and won that match. And so now their next match for their personal feud is for the title, and Gargano now also has the monkey on his back that he fucked up and permitted Ciampa to win his title match in the first place. So now he feels like he has to redeem himself. Ciampa is so like universally hated by the NXT fan base that he doesn't have entrance music. He just comes out, and his music is like the John Cage's 433 equivalent of entrance music. It's just the sound of the fans booing him.
That's incredible. Hey, wait, do you think...
That's a very, like, meta move there.
Well, no, speaking of meta moves, do you think, like, wouldn't it... Because you know how the WWE, like, when it's in the right mood, is pretty good at making fun of itself? Like, I mean, obviously Southpaw Wrestling is an exaggeration of this, but you know how sometimes there's, like, just winks at the camera regarding what wrestlers do or what the announcers do? Wouldn't it be funny if they actually made his music like the sounds of audiences booing?
I mean,
if you could hear it over the actual moves.
They wouldn't need to, although occasionally they have been known to like pipe in crowd noises.
But no, that's what I'm saying. Like, what if he eventually came around and became more well liked, but his music was still boos?
Well, like an example of this would be like Kurt Angle. Like, the thing about Kurt Angle is that the audience chants, like, "You suck," along with his theme music, but they still do that even when they like him, because it's funny.
Yeah. That's an interesting angle.
You're very funny. You should write for WWF.
Yeah.
If only.
Yeah, great.
All the wrestlers would take their catering with sauce on the side. And then...
because the writer has that kind of power.
There would be no special rules matches. Only the plainest of rules.
No, I would do the entire Macho Man cream of the crop bit, but it would always be like a little thing of barbecue sauce on his head instead of coffee creamer.
Oh, I would pay good money to see you make a video of that.
I'm the cream of the crop, and the joke doesn't even make sense because it's not cream, but I don't care. It's barbecue sauce on the side.
I'm the boss, applesauce. That would be amazing. Yes, we should do this.
So anyway, the finish to Ciampa's match was unbelievable. Was hilarious. So I love heel finishes to matches that have extreme stipulations, because those are almost always won by the face. And when the heel manages to eke out like a victory by some quirk of the rules, it's like unbelievably good at getting heat on the heel. Mm-hmm. So one example would be, for example, there's like an old steel cage match between the Big Show, you know him, he's gigantic, and that's basically his character.
He was the guy from the Dungeon of Doom or whatever.
He was that guy, but it turns out
he wasn't the Big Show yet, but
like really funny and charismatic in real life once he got like his attitude problems out of the way.
Oh, he doesn't just stand there and go ha 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 surrounded by bad acting.
It turns out he's actually a pretty cool guy.
Oh, he's cool. He's not hot.
There's no Hulkamaniacs here.
Like, why would you expect that? What the fuck? You're in an actual
that gets you every
RPG
time.
dungeon.
So he had a match against JBL, who was like the he was big in the mid 2000s. He was like the stereotypical Texas Republican. That was his character. He was an oil baron and a Fox News commentator all rolled into one.
That Simpsons cowboy hat oil tycoon guy.
Yeah, he was like literally that guy. He had a celebration. He had a celebration of himself that was just like a fireworks thing that went on for like 10 minutes. And every time that you thought it was over, like another round of fireworks would come out.
That's amazing.
And then like a giant poster of himself came down and more fireworks, and then he would pose and more fireworks.
I mean, even just forgetting the 10 minutes, even just saying a celebration of himself is already pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so this was great. So he had a heel match, a steel cage match against the Big Show. And, JBL was not a very good wrestler. Everybody knew that he never deserved to win a title shot in an odds-on even match, especially against a guy who's like 6'10" in real life, like the Big Show. Like in a real fight, he would just beat the crap out of that guy. Yeah. So in a steel cage match, the match ends when you pin your opponent or when you escape the cage. So the finish of the match was the Big Show chokeslams JBL through the bottom of the ring.
Oh, that's right.
And he's supposed to be incapacitated, so the Big Show just walks out of the cage. And so you're getting ready for the referee to hold up the Big Show's hand and announce that he won the title. But then they just give the belt to JBL, and you're like, what the fuck happened? Where did he even come from? And as it turns out, he got chokeslammed through the ring, and then he crawled out from underneath the ring on the back, away from the camera, while the Big Show was walking out like he didn't need to do anything. And so, like, when the crowd realized, they thought the Big Show had won, and nobody even saw JBL leave, they just saw him get handed the title, while, like, people were trying to figure out what was going on, is, like, the heeliest thing I've ever seen in my life.
That's really good.
It's not satisfying at all. Like, you hate JBL. He's awful. You know, he's a total asshole, and to have never seen the finish and to just be told that you are all ready to cheer the Big Show and you have to just watch JBL slink out, you know, like a broken man but still the winner, is awful. So they did this again with Ciampa versus Gargano, where like Gargano seemed to have so they had a last man standing match, and the idea behind that is you have to keep your opponent down for a count of 10. And so these are almost always matches the face wins, because WWE faces are usually always John Cena types that have like superhuman stamina, and it's very off-putting to have a face be down for a count of 10. You could almost say that it's likely to destroy the face's character. Gargano actually handcuffed Ciampa to the side of the Titantron, like the sound rig, like the speakers. And he was just beating the crap out of him, and it looked like Ciampa was dead. And so Gargano goes to like wind up his finishing move so that he can count, so the ref can count to 10, and everybody can cheer for Gargano having won the title. And he trips and misses and goes flying over him like into the sound equipment and like dislocates his knee in kayfabe and can't get up. And like the force of that move causes Ciampa to like move over a little bit to the side, and his legs like drape off the side of the stage, and so they're technically touching the ground. And so the ref calls him the victor because he kind of like sidles himself over, still handcuffed to the side of the ring, and is technically standing up, while Gargano is in like tremendous pain from having missed this
That's
finishing
ridiculous.
move.
That's like losing to an unconscious person. It's like, oh, come on.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah, that's happened too. You've also I recently showed Lotus Prince a 1-year-old baby get a victory. So like these things
with a lot
happen.
of help.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was NXT. That was fantastic. It was like a 30-minute match, and we were tremendously entertained. And it was all a very natural reaction, which is part of what I like so much about NXT. Compare that to the finish of SummerSlam, which is Roman Reigns' like 17th coronation, as their 17th attempt to like crown him the WWE champion. So 3.5 years ago was supposed to be his first coronation. He was supposed to beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31 for the title. But he was so unpopular, they had someone cash in that Money in the Bank contract in the middle of the match and steal the title. WrestleMania 32 was supposed to be his next coronation. He beat Triple H, who was the champion. Then at WrestleMania 33, he closed out the show by supposedly retiring The Undertaker. Then at 34, it was Brock Lesnar again. Then at the Saudi Arabia show, it was Brock Lesnar again. And like, it's like, just fucking end it already. You know, I'm tired of this storyline where Roman Reigns is trying to like, everybody knows he's the chosen one. Everybody knows he's like the guy who's been tagged by Vince McMahon to be the face of the company. So there's no struggle in him trying to overcome Lesnar. He just gets chance after chance after chance. and they take it away from him to let him cool off a little bit so that maybe the next time the fans will be behind him, and they'll get that reaction where he wins the title and everybody's cheering for him. But it's to the expense of like almost everybody else in the roster, and it's very frustrating.
Well, not to mention that even if the fans did get behind him at this point, would his victory, whenever it comes up, still be bought by them? Because they would have known that they've been trying to do it for years. So it'll still feel like, okay, well, he got it. Yeah.
Let's describe what happened at SummerSlam a couple weeks ago. So currently, you know Braun Strowman, the really big guy who's really famous for tipping over ambulances and
is that the guy who makes the bread?
What was that?
Is that the guy who makes the bread? Sliced bread?
I'm trying to figure out if that's an obscure reference that I don't understand.
It's a bread reference. There's a company called Strowman's that makes bread.
No, he is not that person. I appreciate you explaining that to me, though, because I was completely lost.
Well, now it's funny.
It was
never funny.
Until that point, when OldManStompy didn't know, I guess you could say it was Wonder Bread.
Oh my God.
God damn.
You know what? I don't need to finish this. You know what? I'm just going to go to bed. I'm too old for this shit.
Go to bread?
You were always too old for this shit.
That's true.
So, anyway.
So now that I derailed everything.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. That's what we have you for as a moderator, right? To just, like, completely destroy all reasonable conversation. That's what a moderator does.
I'm a moderate moderator.
And we love you for it.
Oh.
I don't.
I was using a figurative weight, yeah.
So anyway,
4 Heroes of Light sucks.
it does. I appreciate you finally coming around to my side. Anyway,
right,
so Strowman comes out and he's got the Money in the Bank briefcase. So he won it at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. So that means he gets to cash it in for a title shot at any time. And that's usually one of the more exciting things that people look forward to at a given pay-per-view main event for the title, is like whether or not the Money in the Bank guy is going to come out and surprise with a big cash-in. But that's a heel move, and Strowman's so popular that he's almost a face at this point. He's just too much of a force of nature to be a total face. So he comes out right before the main event between Lesnar and Reigns and says, like, I'm not going to be a bad guy. You know, you guys finish your match, and I'm going to cash in on whoever's standing face-to-face.
But that's still being kind of a bad guy.
It's a little bit of a heel move, but the crowd is really into it. They're very excited because they want to see a cash-in, and they know that it probably won't be Roman Reigns walking out with the title because Strowman's going to do it.
Yeah.
So they show Strowman. He's like stalking at the announcer's table the whole match, and like every time he taunts the guys in the ring, the crowd cheers a little bit. So they're really into the match. They really want the match to be over so they can see Strowman come in and cash in his Money in the Bank contract. So they're all cheering like crazy the entire match. And then, so Lesnar comes out, and he gets in Strowman's face, and he delivers a finisher, and so the crowd's cheering because Strowman's getting the crap kicked out of him, which, you know, everybody likes watching somebody get beaten up by Brock Lesnar. That's why he's so popular. So first the crowd is cheering Strowman coming out and cashing his contract. Then the crowd is cheering Lesnar coming out and just demolishing Strowman at the side of the ring, and he like picks up the briefcase and he like hammers him a few times with it, which doesn't get him disqualified because he's doing something to the guy interfering at the match. He's not being interfered with, so it's not against the spirit of the rules as they're enforced as loosely as they are in WWF. And then he takes the briefcase and he throws it like all the way back up the ramp. And then he walks back up into the ring and he immediately gets speared by Roman Reigns, which is his finisher, and then Reigns pins him for the title, 1, 2, 3, while the crowd is still like in shock. So the crowd is still on this like adrenaline high from watching all that crazy stuff happen at the side of the ring. And so they're still like kind of cheering, and they're waiting for Strowman to like get up, and they see him kind of rolling around at the side of the ring looking for his briefcase, and then the show immediately ends. while the crowd is still cheering for Strowman.
Wait, so he cashed in but didn't actually get the cash in?
He didn't cash in. He showed up, announced that he was going to, but the way they usually book it is you have to. You can have all manner of fake out cash-ins. You can go all the way up to the ring, all the way into the ring, give the referee your briefcase, but until the bell rings, you didn't get your match.
Oh wow!
So they go for some false finishes in the cash-in all the time. So the crowd was just cheering the whole time, thinking that they were just going to get over this Roman Reigns match, and Strowman was going to come in and beat the crap out of him and become the new champion. So they were cheering Roman Reigns winning the title, knowing what was going to come next. but instead the show just ended and went off the air with that image of the crowd cheering for what we thought was Roman Reigns holding up the title, but was actually Strowman looking for his briefcase. And so that was what the broadcast had, but obviously in the Barclays Center, after the cameras stopped rolling, like, they booed the shit out of that match because they realized they got played.
But that's a dick move, though. Like, I mean, not even playing the audience, that's kind of amusing, but, like, the real dick move is, like actually manipulating the TV watching audience at home, because that's just not, like, they're not showing what happens. Like, that's not what the cheering was for.
I mean, if you know how the WWF works, then you know exactly what happened. And if you don't care, then you don't care. You know, like...
No, but I mean, if you're watching TV, though, like, would you think that the audience is cheering for Reigns? Or, like, are you aware that Strowman was over there?
If you're asking me personally, I know what happens because I watched
you were there.
I
know you were there, I know. But, like,
I wasn't there personally, but I watched the broadcast, and I know that Strowman came out. That was part of the storyline. He also came out the next day. Okay. And the same thing happened. He tried to cash in, but he was interfered with.
Okay.
So, like, this is nothing unusual. It just is going to be a hazard that Roman Reigns is going to face for the next few months, or however long it takes before Strowman cashes in, or somebody else wins the title off of Reigns.
Okay, go ahead.
Is this one of the thing that a lot of people were complaining about? Because I saw a bunch of people basically throw a fit of rage on Facebook about WWE in the last week. So. Is that what they were frustrated about?
So that's a really big one. Another really big one is that one of the top faces in the women's division just turned heel, and she's really popular, but they book her like a standard heel, and it's very frustrating because it goes against like her character. It doesn't really make sense. It almost feels like they were trying to ruin her character, which they do periodically. If a person becomes unpopular with the front office. So, like, people are trying to figure out what's going on, and if this is something that we just, like, a phase that we have to get through before she can go back to being cheered, or if they're eventually going to see the light, and like a CM Punk, they're going to make her into a cool heel, so to speak. So, like, CM Punk, it was almost impossible, once he really got popular in the WWF, to get him booed. You know, he had a feud against The Undertaker where he was the heel, and he literally had to, like, take the urn, which had Paul Bearer's ashes in it in kayfabe, and like sprinkle it over his body before people started to think like, maybe this guy's kind of an asshole and we shouldn't be cheering him.
I think Daniel Bryan, the same thing happened to him. They tried to make him into a heel and it just didn't take.
Well, Daniel Bryan also, like, he's really sarcastic in real life, so he was a great heel. You know, he was fantastic.
But people loved him for it. Yeah, it was like Roddy Piper. Like, everybody loved him for it. You know.
Yeah, sure. And like Jake the Snake, like, he was in that category. But also even like Steve Austin was like a take no nonsense kind of tweener. You know, he was a brawler. He was a guy who just wanted to beat the crap out of everybody. He didn't really have a strong sense of morality, except might makes right. And he was still extremely popular because his primary target was Vince McMahon. It wasn't his actions that they liked; it was the consequences.
Yeah.
But now, here's a question. Going back to Strowman, is you had mentioned that he's not full-on heel, but he's still too much of a force of nature to be considered a face. Like, does that make him like a low-key heel, or could he be some kind of like anti-hero?
Well, Strowman is the same as Austin in this regard. He's not popular just because he beats up people. He's very popular because he beats up Roman Reigns, you know?
Okay.
Like, that's what got him the most cheers, is like putting Reigns in the ambulance and tipping it over, and then Reigns goes crazy and then like beats Strowman up, and Strowman's in the ambulance, and Reigns actually drove an ambulance into a truck. Like, he literally tried to murder Strowman on Raw. You know, like,
that's insane.
That's not a face thing to do, but he's still technically a face. And they even did the he's like staring at his reflection in the side view mirror of the
Who
ambulance.
am I?
They did the camera zooms in on his reflection and the 1,000-yard stare, like he was turning heel, but then there were no consequences to that whatsoever. He should be fucking arrested. Like, there are certain situations where clearly this should happen, and sometimes it does. Sometimes people get arrested in WWF. It never sticks for more than a day, you know. But this really felt like it should have been one of those times, but it wasn't. And it was great.
It was just like when Jerry Springer got brought into in front of the Senate, and they're like, shouldn't these people be getting arrested? And he's just like, No.
So when Reigns did this, Kurt Angle, who was the GM at the time, came out. He was like, put another match on, and like these two jobbers just run out and try to have a D-list match for a while to distract the crowd. Meanwhile, they're piping Angle's microphone out to the stadium so everyone can hear, like, is he dead? Quick, get an ambulance, get a stretcher out here, fix his neck, find Roman Reigns. And
my God, he's got a family.
and like he's just screaming like don't let the audience see what's going on. Meanwhile, they're showing it on the Titantron and nobody's paying attention to the match that's going on in the ring.
That's great.
It makes Angle look like a complete idiot. That he can't direct the show at all.
Well, that's one of those things in like a cartoon where it's like, sir, your mic was on the entire time. Like, oh, like as you insulted your own audience or something.
Well, wrestling is pretty cartoonish.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Anyway, that was my SummerSlam experience. It's been a couple of weeks since then, and most of the attention right now is heading towards Evolution, which is their first women's division only pay-per-view.
That's great.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
So the hype is real for Evo 2018.
Yes. Well, I mean, Evo 2018 is over, but Evolution 2018.
I was gonna say the other Evo 2018.
the women's Evo.
Yeah.
So it seemed like it was quite successful that they had the Women's Royal Rumble in January and the first Women's Hell in a Cell about I think 2.5 years ago at this point. So it seems quite clear that the fans are responding with money when they feature the very talented, their most popular and their most talented women's wrestlers. Not quite as much as like a John Cena, but very few people are yet. But they're giving it time to grow, and they're really trying to put it at center stage. So in the Royal Rumble, they brought a bunch of people out of retirement, a bunch of women who would still nominally be in wrestling shape and of wrestling age, if not for the fact that, like, because of the restrictions placed on them by the industry, they were like forced out of the business when they were like 25 or 26. They come back and participated in some of these events, and I think they might make some one-off appearances wrestling at the show, and that'll be really exciting to see.
Excellent. All right. Well, any final words on the WWE front?
Unless you guys have any final words, I've counted to 10. I'm the last man standing.
Yay! No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, that is the show for this week. Lots of exciting things to talk about. Please weigh in on these announcements and the WWE happenings here in the comments. We need a little bit more participation than that's been happening in the last couple weeks. You guys were real good about it in the beginning, but it fell off maybe because of vacations and such. But we want your participation, so come on over. So please remember to subscribe to the YouTube Corrective Consciousness, or subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. Wow. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It will help me raise money to read. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can catch us on Thursday on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the YouTube... the podcast where we could explore the inanity of pop culture. Now I'm just adding words. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, Twitter, Switch, Battle.net, and thank God I can stop talking.
Okay. Is it my turn yet?
No, there's going to be a big banner unfolding with Vice's face on it while fireworks go off.
And now you could follow me on the God damn it. Anyway, you could follow me on my YouTube page, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or even getting involved in a Discord server chat with me and other patrons, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And also seeing some weird-ass WiiWare titles being played.
Yeah, I played Ghostblade. That sure was a game.
That was that, like, Castlevania-like game, right?
If you say so. It was an on-a-rail sword slasher.
Gotcha.
And it was like it was competent at what it did, but it's so slow.
It's the kind of content we come to expect from your channel.
does what it's supposed to, but it's so slow. I
Prince
played Sin and Punishment last week, and that game was hype as shit. That game was fucking great.
Nice.
All right, go ahead.
And you can find me. Oh, you can find me now. Am I allowed to go now? Okay.
Yeah.
You can find me as OldManStompy on most major gaming and social media networks except for Steam, or you can find me as Dobutsu Nomori on Monster Hunter World for a little bit, or as Ovis Ares on Final Fantasy XIV. Or you can catch, actually, my sister has been doing some Twitch streaming with me and my other sister under Asuna335 on Twitch. So please come check it out. They stream Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m.
Oh, really cool.
Eastern time. Eastern U.S. time.
Eastern and Pacific time. All right, everybody. We'll catch everybody on Thursday for Reactive. Catcha.
For a corrective.
Oh, for corrective.
No, hold on. Start the whole podcast over. OldManStompy, what were you thinking about NXT?
I don't remember.
Well, all right. We'll have to do it better next week, I guess. All right. Until next time, everyone.
We won't do it any better.
We won't.
Oh.
All right. Bye.